Okay, I'll just open our meeting here. This is our 5th meeting, I think, for working on a negotiated agreement for the upcoming 23-24 school year. We have our facilitator, Stephanie Haynes, attending remotely by Zoom. And I assume you can hear us, Stephanie?
I can. Can you hear me, Rachel?
Yes. All the technology is working,
Okay,
thanks
great.
to Clayton. Oh, good. And we just had our 10th team member appear. So we've talked before the meeting and sort of looked at our agenda. And our agenda includes continuing the IBB process on the late resignation issue and the sub-fill rate issue. At our last meeting, we discussed as a team that it could be helpful with regard to the late resignation issue to hear from the Shawnee Mission recruit team, specifically with regard to retention efforts.
Yep.
And so those team members are here, and I'll let Dr. Schumacher introduce them.
Yeah. So thanks, guys, for letting this team come and present. We really appreciate it. Guys, if you want to come on up, and I'll do a brief intro as you're getting set up. So the intro is this. So Pam Lewis, this is her team. She's the one that heads this up for our department, and she wishes she could be here, but she is traveling a little bit. She has done an incredible job in building this team over the last couple of years. It started 2 years ago during the pandemic, and at first it was just focused on recruitment. That's the name, SMSD Recruit. And a lot of good things are born out of that. It changed direction last summer during our HR leadership team meetings, and we focused in on retention, that we realized that recruiting 240 people every year is not sustainable. So we've got to do something to retain those folks. And so tasked Pam and this team to take on that challenge because what we were hearing from our neighbors and what we were seeing out in industry as well is that it's not just about compensation that keeps people in jobs, right? It's other things. It's leadership opportunities. It's having a voice. It's being a part of a community. It's all of those things. And so I've gotten a couple run-throughs of this presentation. I am so proud of the work of this team. I want to let you guys take it from there, but it is incredible. Floor is yours.
You should be able to share.
This is the host. Is there a host?
On there. We're working on some screen sharing here, and I don't know if that's going to be possible with our Zoom meeting still going on. It should be? Okay. Clayton can do anything.
This
Sounds
is
good.
when I.
Clayton.
Disable screen sharing. I did not do that. I can't stretch anymore.
You don't have any
You
filler?
know what I mean? Like a newscaster,
Yeah.
like when they're like Phil, like stretch. I don't have that. Yeah, sorry. I wasn't. You guys didn't read my mind.
I think sometimes the quiet's okay. You just
Okay.
need to enjoy the.
But I think of that, and that scares the heck out of me, having someone telling me, okay, just fill air.
Just talk.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong.
My newscasters get in trouble all the time.
Share screen. Okay, try it now.
Yeah.
There we go.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right.
Here we go.
Yay.
Perfect. Thanks. All right. Okay. All right. My name is Taylor Ramsey, and I'm an instructional coach in the district. I work at Merriam Park Elementary, and this is my 9th year in the district.
Hi, my name is Brian Cleansing. I work at Westridge Middle School as an English 8 teacher, and this is my 12th year in the district, I think. I don't know anymore.
Good
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tatiana Briceno. This is my first year, and I teach math at Shawnee Mission Northwest.
Hi, my name is Paige Welsh. I'm a 5th grade teacher at Corinth Elementary. This is my 2nd year in the district.
All right. So, like Dr. Schumacher mentioned, we realized in Shawnee Mission from all of the employees that we had hired over the last couple of years that the focus of the SMSD recruit team needed to stay focused on recruitment, but maybe put a little bit more effort into our retention plan and building a retention plan. Like you mentioned, there's not a lot of information out there about retaining employees in education. It's not really a problem that we've had in the past. Usually it's been a very well sought after profession, but the pandemic has hurt us a little bit in that regard. So when we were doing research on what an employee retention plan is, we looked to the corporate world. What are some things that they use to keep their employees coming back to their company? And these were the pillars that were built after looking at some of that research and some of the things that different corporations use. And so these are the 5 pillars that have been the background and the foundation of the retention plan that I would like to say is in draft mode. So everything that you're seeing today is not a final product. It's actually probably never going to be because we're always going to be tweaking it and coming together and making revisions. We wanted to highlight that the vision and the mission of the SMSD recruit team, and I think this partners with the Human Resources Department, is that we're working collaboratively to recruit, hire, and retain the best for our students in Team 512. And this is very closely aligned with the strategic plan, Strategy 2.2. Like Dr. Schumacher said, we hired a lot of certified hires this year, 240. We have an awesome recruitment plan. It's thriving. But like I said, we needed some work in employee retention. Our team is very diverse. We have elementary teachers, we have secondary teachers, but what I think is also very important to highlight is we have teachers that are in their first year. We have teachers who have experiences in 3 to 10 years of teaching, and teammates that have 11 plus years in education and in our district. And teachers who have taught in previous districts and are coming to us with those experiences as well.
Okay, so we'd like to just kind of begin by walking you through what the process looked like as we began our work this year so that it gives a little bit of context as we move through the rest of this, kind of highlighting those action items that we are going to work on implementing. So at the beginning, we asked what is already being done in the district to recruit and retain our employees, and then we shifted that mindset to what is missing, what could be added, what could be improved and enhanced. And so at our very first meeting, all of the members of our recruit team were asked to write down individually what they felt would best hold employees here in our district, what would motivate them to stay, and what would build longevity. After that, we were grouped together to discuss those with the team members that we were with, smaller groups. Around the room, Pam went ahead and put the headings, the categories that she kind of established when she was doing her research from, like she said, the corporate retention plans that are already in existence. And then we were asked to kind of sort those out and decide which items fit into categories, and were there categories that exist in education that these did not fall under? Could we build any new categories that would need focus? And so that process, I guess it progressed along as we went. We worked on brainstorming and then compiling all of that data into a spreadsheet where we could look at those items one at a time and rate them on what would most highly impact our staff, what would be the most beneficial, and that ranking came from that recruitment team. What did we all feel was most important? And so then 2 to 3 ideas were kind of highlighted as things that could actually be set into action, and we came up with action steps that could be approved and then implemented in the future once all of this kind of moved moved further.
All right, so one of our first pillars is the recruitment, and this is a lot of our work as the recruitment team, and so some of the different recruitment events that we went to. So we're just going to briefly talk about our recruitment process because we know that this team really wants to hear about the retention plan.
Okay, so I was a part of different opportunities as a member of the recruit team where I went to the University of Nebraska and spoke with several candidates who are, in their third or fourth year of college looking for educational opportunities. But then I was also a part of a group of teachers who talked with high school students in the district who are in some of our pre-educator tracks, discussing things like what work-life balance might be for a teacher, or what an actual day looks like for a teacher as well. And in addition to some of these recruitment efforts, these ideas represent a lot of the leadership aspects that we already do and hope to expand upon with this plan, as we're looking at how leadership is an essential part of retaining some of our more experienced staff and retaining some of our newer staff as well. So, oh, that's not good. So that recruitment effort was, that was a bit of my experience with that.
In addition to that, I was able to assist to one of the recruitment programs at K-State, where it was also a great opportunity for us to network with the College of Education there at K-State. I met the social media coordinator there at K-State, and she was able to come to my classroom and other teachers' classroom and just showcase how we teach, or just like a day in our classroom. And that was also a great way to recruit, right? Because that was posted throughout the social media at K-State, in our social media as well. And so that's also a great way to show students that are in the profession what it's like being a first-year teacher, because as a first-year teacher, you have a lot of questions, and you want to make sure that other teachers are doing great and showcasing how great SMSD is.
Can I add there too? This is something new that we're not seeing any other districts do, is taking first-year employees back to the universities. They don't want to see stuffy old guys in suits like me talking to. They gravitate to them. They just go immediately to them, and it's been a huge lift for us. It's been awesome.
It was also great as a first-year teacher to talk with juniors and seniors in K-State, because they had so many questions about, like, how was the process? Was it scary? What was the interview process? How does that look like? What do you need? Like, do you need professional clothes? What is there to? What are all the steps that you took in order to get there? And it's also a great, like, I don't know, I feel like they look up to you as a first-year teacher, second-year teacher, and it was a great experience, at least for me. And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's a really great segue, because our recruitment was one of our pillars. Our second pillar was professional learning support. And let me tell you, it was a long one. We had a lot of ideas of how we could improve in this area, or things that we could do to help teachers feel supported with professional learning. And what I think one of our big action items that we heard from our first-year teachers and our second and third year teachers, and honestly, even our teachers who have come to us with a lot of experience, shared that we need to improve some of the NTA sessions that we provide. And this was, I thought it was very powerful sitting in the room, because it gave our first year teachers a voice at the table, something that they could share in a safe place that they could share. Here's what I feel like I could have used more of. It wasn't to say that our new teacher academy isn't great, because it is, but they were sharing what feedback they had. And so an action for us in this area is to bring together members of our SMSD recruit team and the directors of HR, professional learning, curriculum coordinators, instructional coaches, and have a conversation about, like, here's the feedback that we have. What can we do to improve this experience for our new teachers next at the beginning of next school year? And then another idea that came up is teachers really want time to collaborate with one another. They want to be in grade level teams and talk about what is going on at your grade level. At the secondary level, they want the opportunity to talk about what's happening in content areas. And they want to identify like who's somebody that I can go to and observe and see teaching in action. And as Pam kind of, when she was leading the team, she talked about how that happens a little bit in the background of principals just talking. But how can we develop a structure for this to take place? And so that was another theme that kind of came up during our meetings, is like we just want time together, want time to learn from each other. And so we heard that, and that was why that was another one of those high action items. Anything else?
Yeah, I went to the meeting, the new teacher meeting, at the beginning of the school year, and it was great. Even though it was great, I learned a lot of new information, but a lot of them I had the pleasure to student teach here at the district at Northwest, and that's how I got hired as well. So a lot of the tools, a lot of the resources, I already got them from my experience and also from my experience at K-State. So even though a lot of the things in the professional learning were a little bit repetitive, for me it was also a great experience for me to connect with other people in the district. And that's how I actually met one of my best friends that teaches at South. She teaches Spanish at South. So now I get together and like plan or just talk about our day in school. So that was actually a great way to connect with other students, with other teachers as well.
I just want to clarify for the team too. So when you saw those pictures, Taylor, can you go back to the pictures? So they brainstormed tens and tens, maybe hundreds of ideas that landed in each of these pillars, and what they're going through are the top 2 or 3 actions that they're going to do in each of those pillars.
Yep.
Just want to make sure we're clear on that.
Yeah, we realized we had so many great ideas. I think that, and they were all teacher-driven, teacher-led ideas. But we were like, we want to make a high impact, and what can we do that can make an impact quickly? This is a great, there's some really awesome ideas. I think I get goosebumps every time I read through this one. But this is a culture pillar, and an idea that was shared is we want to always remember, especially on our hardest days, the why. Why do we do this career? Why are we in this profession? And so an idea that came out of one of our meetings was an I Make a Difference folder. And so because this isn't something that we've done yet as a district, we would hope to pass this out to every employee when we put out this action item. And then it would be a folder where teachers could put in nice notes from parents, nice notes from students, the things that you pull out that you're like, when you've had your hardest day, this is why I do what I do. And then the thought is that after we've put this out to all of our employees, this is something we hand to our new hires when we hire them in Shawnee Mission. Here, this is something that you're going to probably need. And not every day is going to be sunshine and rainbows. So pull this out when you have a tough day, and just remember why you're doing this, because you do make a difference in the lives of children. Another idea that our teachers told us is that they want to be recognized. They want feedback. They want to hear about the good things that they're doing. And so they want some shout outs. And so the goal for the SMSD recruit team is that we can develop some focus groups when we take this work back to our team and build an idea bank for our administrators of things that they can do to highlight the great things that are happening in our buildings. The thought behind that is that we can do some of the work, and then we know our administrators are busy, and so maybe they can pull some of those things to use in their buildings for staff recognition. And then social media celebrations at the district level, we thought it would be neat to build another monthly idea bank of things that we can do to highlight on social media. How can we celebrate each other, and have kind of themes every week of some celebrating that we can do. I think that's it on that one. But we knew culture is a big thing, and that a lot of research shows that we have to have that employee.
Can you go back?
I think he's coming to make sure your time's not running.
Yeah.
In a moment.
I was going to say back on the culture idea.
Oh, yeah.
And then the other aspect that is not reflected in the slide necessarily is the idea that there will also be ongoing support and learning offered starting at the district level for leadership to help them better understand and support what this culture looks like across the district at each building. So in addition to potentially reviewing data, reviewing testing, things like that, is also making that commitment that we are sharing ideas about how we instill and build a culture in our community and how we can do that in all of our schools.
Okay, so in those brainstorming sessions, one of the most resounding kind of items came under this leadership pillar. And so many of the teachers expressed their willingness and their want to take on larger roles beyond the scope of just a teacher. And I think, as we said, that people are our greatest resource. The teachers have their fingers on the pulse. They know what's going on. And I think that we all agreed that they make great representatives for different committees and communities and teams throughout the district. So the largest question was, what are those opportunities and how do you step into those roles? Many of our team, our recruitment team, expressed that they did not know. And so we've worked to develop a graphic and a map that kind of highlights and outlines each of those different roles and ways that they can get involved. And hopefully we're looking, that first item is that career counseling and that team time with a coach, whether that be your building principal or another representative in the district. But this gives them a tool to place in front of that employee that's expressing they'd like to grow professionally and build some new goals, but they don't know where to begin. And so with this graphic, that supervisor, that leader that's already established in the district would have an idea of things that they can say. Research is showing that employee engagement is heavily tied to their ability to step into leadership roles and have a voice in their career. So that's kind of where this initiative came from. And so, no, we can't click. There we go. Okay, so as a team, we developed this graphic, and I know that it's small there. Hopefully it's shared on your screen, and if you're able to expand it just a little bit, that's great. However, the idea is that this would become a digital tool for principals to utilize to begin those coaching conversations with employees who communicate that they are looking to build their professional goals. And then what ways can they grow? And so we identified several roles that teachers step into as leaders. That's that ring around. Those are those are opportunities for teachers to lead from the seat that they hold. And then those move over as they decide that that's something that they'd like to do. And they move into curriculum instruction or special education or English language learning, or even into the community as a leader. And then ultimately, there are other ways that they can hold positions in district leadership as well, through all of those items there on the far right. And so this is in its first stages, very early stages, but it provides a great starting point. Ideally, this would become a digital resource where each of those are linked to information on what that role looks like, how you can begin the process of stepping into that if it's something that you're well suited for. And this builds longevity in someone's career. They can begin to see themselves as a stakeholder in the district far from now, and it builds their want to stay.
Isn't this a cool graphic? I love it. I think it's such a great resource. We get this question all the time. What are leadership opportunities that are out there in the school district? And they're right there in this one piece. So I think it's awesome.
Just to share on a personal note, this was my intention for joining the recruitment team. I was looking for this. I wanted to know what those opportunities were. And everyone I asked had great answers, but they were all different answers. And I felt that there should be a resource and something that existed. So again, this can be added to, taken away from, but it's a great starting point so that we have that.
One other piece of the leadership pillar that we wanted to be sure to highlight too was the great work that kind of is already currently going on that we just want to continue to expand on in our Grow Your Own program. Shawnee Mission has a lot of partnerships with secondary institutions. We have a lot of students coming into our buildings from KU, K-State to do their student teaching experiences. And that builds capacity in a lot of ways, right? We have the ability to provide our teachers with mentorship opportunities where they can mentor new teachers and grow in their professional capacity too, because they're learning new things and new initiatives. And then also when we get our student teachers and our practicum students in our classrooms, they're learning about Shawnee Mission, and we're recruiting them to come and be a part of our staff too. And this is also connects to our classified work that we're trying to do in paras and building routes for them if they want to see, or if they see themselves as a teacher. We have pathways for that. And we're just continuing to refine our Grow Your Own program, our Grow Our Own program. And this also, there is a pathway too for our high school students to try to bring them back and get them back in Shawnee Mission as a teacher. And then work-life balance. This is our final pillar and a very important one too.
So what I'd first like to note is that it may appear like there is maybe fewer things indicated here with work-life balance, and I think that that reflects a lot of the understanding of how challenging it is to address work-life balance in a systematic way with the resources that are available. So we're hoping first to kind of build upon the Wellness Champions initiative that is currently in place. And first of all, kind of with that is making sure that we are more effectively communicating what that program is and how it can be supportive for encouraging healthy work-life balance for all staff members, from administrators to teachers and paraprofessionals and support staff.
Does everyone know what the Wellness Champions are? Okay, good.
And Amber, like you, I wish more people knew, because I didn't really know what that was until about 45 minutes ago. So they were wonderful and filled me in on it. And that kind of speaks to the importance, I think, of communicating more effectively about what that is and how it's designed to help and support the staff members of our district. And then another aspect of that is to provide wellness workshops and more intentional professional learning that aligns with the importance of work-life balance. And that can be at the New Teacher Academy, but it can also be at our instructional fairs and within the districts, within the school buildings themselves, ongoing and systematic throughout the year to encourage and actively communicate what work-life balance is in a proactive fashion as opposed to a reactive one. So one suggestion that our team would like to see potentially is more consistent and clarified messaging about some of the boundaries of the teaching profession and how our community can support that. For example, with the 24-hour communication policy and just waiting before responding, and just be very intentional with communicating that with our stakeholders.
I think too that just something that I've really enjoyed about this team is that this is such a teacher-centered plan. The ideas that came from it, the feedback that we got, it's just really truly driven by what teachers want, and it's giving them a seat at the table. It's been really powerful to be a part of this team, and I think it's because we're so passionate about education and the work that we do for kids, and we want to continue to have great people in front of our kids at Shawnee Mission. So that kind of concludes what we have prepared for you, but if you guys have any questions for us regarding our plan, just note that it's a draft. There's a lot of different people that are involved in this, and a lot of different people in the district that we still have to bring to the table and have discussions about this. And these are things that kind of we want to see happen, but there's things and tasks that we have to do to put it into action. But I think it's a great start. I'm really proud of the work that we've done.
Great job, guys. Thank you. Awesome.
That's awesome. Was there any kind of framework for this kind of work? I mean, I've never heard of a school district doing this kind of work before, but I don't work in human resources.
No, we couldn't find anything, and really, it was born out of that leadership meeting in the summer from our HR perspective, and it was just out of an effort of, hey, we can't continue to recruit 240 people a year. That's not sustainable. And so Pam really took it and ran. She did an incredible job, and she had great people to work with. So I'm proud of the work. And so it was born out of the question from this team, and a great question from this team. Okay, great, we've got these late resignations, but what are we doing to keep people in place anyway? So, of course, we're hopeful that you see that your HR team is doing some things intentionally to try to keep our staff here, and it will continue to grow. So. If you guys have any questions for the team?
Yeah, excuse me. I think you talked a little bit about teacher voice, and that being maybe something that they value within a district. And so I wondered if I know you looked a lot about celebrating, but what about ways for them to voice concerns? Or if they, wanted a way to safely express how they were feeling about leadership within their own building? Like, not necessarily leadership opportunities, but the people that are leading you. So when I saw that pillar, I was thinking leadership meant like the people that lead you and how they make you feel and your satisfaction within the building.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if.
Absolutely. That was actually one of our high impact items for not necessarily under leadership, but under culture. And the discussion of the team was just teachers also want time, one-on-one time with their principal to be able to have discussions, and outside of like an evaluation meeting, like a time where I can come and just talk to you about how I'm feeling. And that was kind of under the culture too, that it kind of in a little bit of that career counseling, like talking, here's something that you can do to get some leadership opportunities. But we kind of hoped too, within that conversation, there could be another side to it of like, well, how are you feeling? What do you need from me? How can I help you in what you're doing now? So that was definitely another idea that the team had brought up and something that we felt was important too. Okay. So.
There were conversation prompts too for teachers, because sometimes we felt that, you're asked, what can I do to support you? And the teacher goes, I'm good. And we're reluctant to ask for that assistance, but we still do feel the need for that support. And so some of that came from some conversation stems and some discussion building, and that they were even paced out throughout the year based on what the need might look like at different seasons throughout the school year.
Any discussion of maybe like an anonymous survey that, just to get feedback from each building?
Yeah. And I actually had the opportunity to go to a meeting with Dr. Ziegler's team, and they have a diversity and equity, their team is working on a survey. And so I think that the thought is that at some point we would marry the two to get the most participation from teachers, because sometimes on those surveys, participation isn't always high. And so we thought, can we do something with both? And so I think that is conversation that's kind of happening of how can we streamline it.
Great. I like that you talked a lot about boundaries. And so another thing I was wondering is discuss making sure everyone understands that they are guaranteed, plan time and lunch, and that trying to advocate for yourself to make sure that happens is okay, and you're not going to be looked down upon, and you're not going to be retaliated against, and wearing a badge of honor for overworking is not something we want people to be doing. I just don't want people to feel like if you're not going above and beyond like everybody else, then something's wrong with you, type thing.
So I think that falls within the idea both of culture, but also with work-life balance and how you're providing both guidance to your building leaders and then setting a direction for what professional learning can look like to support that. So you're having that consistent messaging that is shared for all staff members of this is what our boundary is, and we need to be firm with that because it's a part of a healthy work-life balance, part of a healthy district community.
Okay. Sorry, I hear a little.
Anybody have any more questions before we let these folks go about their day? This is awesome, super uplifting, and I think it's super valuable work, particularly given that the issue of retention has come up in this, for this team multiple times. And I mean, I think if we're being honest with ourselves, there's only so much that this team can do from a P&A perspective on retention efforts. And so it's awesome to see that we've got such a detailed action plan being put together and, that we're going to start walking through in the future years. So I think it's awesome.
Yeah, we just appreciate the chance to share the work. So
Well,
thank you for giving us an audience.
We appreciate the opportunity to share our voice as teachers. I think that just having the platform to talk and to feel safe to share how we feel and knowing that there's some actions being taken, I think that's pretty awesome. So thank you guys.
Have a great day.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yep.
Rachel, can you guys hear me okay? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm just checking in on that. I don't have my laptop with me here today, and I don't know if Jonathan has the notes we had on this, but is there any conversation we need to have linked back to any frame and focus on those notes, or should we just go ahead and move right into the chart you put together, Rachel? What do you guys think in terms of where you want to go now?
I'm happy to talk us through the chart. That's just something I wasn't like actually assigned, but over spring break, I thought, okay, we are maybe overworking something that every single school district has had to think about and put together. And there's, so many examples out there, but we've talked a lot in this team about what do our community school districts do? And what do Kansas school districts do? And so I kind of put it together just because, one, I know that if we do come to some sort of solution and that solution involves any revision to the language, it's good for me to study other language and frankly to critique it. So what's clear, what's not clear, what is just waiting for a grievance, what's easy to follow. And I started doing that, and then I was like, wow, there are literally degrees to these things. And so I started color coding, and that's what I put together for you guys. So if you want, I can go ahead and sort of talk through it, although everyone's had it. So hopefully everybody's already had an opportunity to read it. You don't need to spend a ton of time.
Rachel, to be clear, the chart is what other districts are doing in terms of late resignations, right?
Limited to just the late resignation provision, yes. I'm not aware of any
just
retention efforts or anything.
Report that we got was pretty amazing. A good group of folks, it seems like, really are putting some hard work and thought into retention. That said, I feel like we had asked Mike to have them come and report because we started to brainstorm possibilities. And, some folks on the IBB team, or really everyone, said, yes, we need to deal with late retentions, but why are people leaving? What are we doing about retention? So I guess I just want to make sure that folks feel good about that report. If there's anything in your notes you had, or any questions you have, or any follow-up you need to do, you can still raise issues around that. But I felt like folks were not real comfortable jumping to sort of the penalty part, if you will, of late resignation until they knew, the district as a whole is also looking at retention. So that's why I think we're kind of now shifting to the just what do we do about late resignations? But is that where people feel like we're going right now? Are you guys comfortable kind of shifting to that part now? Or, and when we do start brainstorming ideas today, we may have some ideas off of Rachel's chart, but we will go ahead and open the document we had last time. I think I emailed to Jonathan just to see if there were other ideas that were still linked to retention in there. But it seems like you've got a really comprehensive group working on that. I just don't want to sort of flow or close on retention ideas when we start to brainstorm, as Rachel is leading us to the late resignation ideas.
I wouldn't suggest these as solutions yet. This is meant to be just data, basically. So I might later when we get to that point, but right now, this is literally just a temperature check on everyone else as data for us to have.
Okay, I appreciate that clarity then. Okay, then I'll just be quiet, Rachel, and let you present if everybody's ready to keep moving.
One of the things that I kind of noticed about the ones that did not have liquidated damages is that a lot of them do have something in place where people can put in for transfers, like submit a form. And I know that that's, in my opinion, when I'm hearing people talk about why they're leaving, it's because you're right, they don't get along with someone, and so they like to transfer to another building, and they're not being allowed to do that. And I know that there are quite a few positions in my field where people don't feel like they have someone they can go and talk to about what's going on. And then second of all, they want to transfer out of a position that they're in because it's not fitting their personality, but also other people not in my early childhood field don't feel like they can go to other buildings, or they're being blocked from going to other buildings. And so, like I said, in the ones that I was looking up in here that do not have liquidated damages, that are like the pure suitable replacement, they do have the ability to, number one, put in to transfer, but also to be considered to transfer before new hires. So, I mean, a lot of them had that in there, like, you will put in your request, you will be considered before a new hire. And I don't necessarily think that that's what happens in our district. So if we did want to go away from liquidated damages, that might be something we could look at.
Yeah, thanks for that question, or I think it's a question. Statement, I'm going to answer it, even if it's not a question. Yeah, we don't call it a transfer policy, but I think we pretty much do in comparison to other districts. So when someone says, can I request a transfer? Our answer is, well, we don't do transfers, but what you can do is apply for any open positions in the district. And so we post every single open position. And so if employee X wants to transfer, they have the right to apply for any open position in the district, and we will fully consider them as we would any employee or candidate. So I guess I would contend that we basically have a transfer policy. As far as placement, we have a lot of different people to place, and so we've worked with both Linda and Jill on our structure of placement. So we do have early hires. We have people coming off of leave, and then we have those transfers, or we have those people that need to be moved. That's the order in which we place. I'm more than willing to engage in that conversation again. But the last time we had it, we kind of all agreed that, hey, we've got to get these new hires placed, and then we need to give preference then to people coming off of leave and trying to find them a spot, and then we fall to those, that next tier. So
are early hires placed before the openings of buildings, or are the positions for buildings open and then the early hires?
It's a weird time. So
Yeah,
there's some timing issues there. So as we're going through staffing, there may be some early hires that get placed because we know that someone has already left and we don't actually get it posted. So, so it's kind of a.
So a position could be open, but an early hire is going to be placed in that spot, so it's not going to be put out there for someone to possibly transfer to.
That's right. That's right.
Do we have a transfer window for is there a cutoff for when you can apply to
Well,
potentially transfer?
no, but we don't, I will tell you, we don't like doing it mid-year.
Well, right. I just didn't know if there was.
We've considered it. I think we may have done it a time or two, because of, the situation. So I'll say untenable. I don't know if it's that strong, but, something like that we'll consider it. But typically it's this time of year. People are applying for jobs that they want at school X rather than school Y. So, yeah.
Was that?
Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. I have a couple things. One, when I was looking at our late resignation list of people, I kind of went through and found the ones that were qualifying exceptions. So something that fell under an exception you wouldn't pay. And so when taking those off, we still have more this year than, we're probably not necessarily looking at the 2020, 2021 year because it was more of an exception, but more this year than 1920 and 1819, but so far less than the 1718 year. If we take off qualifying exceptions, which I kind of thought we would, because we would allow those anyway if we didn't have a 28 calendar day or whatnot. I don't know that I would understand a reasoning to not have the 28 calendar day option in the summer, but I believe liquidated damages is something that needs to be kept in the agreement, but I can understand how having an option to wait 28 calendar days over the summer makes it very simple for other districts to hire someone away and them not having anything that they needed to do to, cancel their contract. So that's a solution that I put out there.
Well, so Jill, I captured two possible solutions. Again, just because we put them on the solution list doesn't necessarily mean they're going to solve the problem or that they'll meet the interest without harming interest, right? But one that I heard is maybe it's communicate or consider the transfer process / options. I've already heard that you don't generally do that mid-year, but let's go ahead and I've made a note that could be one brainstormed idea. It may turn out that it harms too many interest or it doesn't fix the problem, right? But I'm putting it up there. The next one, Jill, if you can put in a sentence, I just heard, don't do liquidated damages in the summer.
No,
And the
sorry.
idea-
We have an option where staff could give a 28 calendar day notice and not pay anything. They don't have to pay any liquidated damages, and they are released from their contract. So having that over the summer, your 28 calendar days are going to happen while you're not even on contract, essentially. And so not having that option, meaning your option over the summer, if you were wanting to late resign, would be to pay the liquidated damages and not to get out of paying them by just waiting 28 calendar days.
Okay. So then you're saying kind of institute liquidated damages.
We already
or
have
something.
them, but yes.
Okay.
I will say, I do think we need to think about simplifying. It's been way, way too complex in terms of explaining it to employees understanding it. I know, from the few that we've seen, because of how many breaks we have in the school year, 28 days I know there's been circumstances where that has not been sufficient time to find a suitable replacement. I think, again, Shawnee, these are just examples. Certainly Shawnee Mission needs what works for us. And if we're novel and different, I'm okay with that. All these other districts kind of have one or the other. It's kind of like, we do liquidated damages here or we do suitable replacement here. I don't know the why behind that, but it's kind of like we are a suitable replacement district or we are a liquidated damages district. And again, I think we just need something that is simple in one way or the other. So maybe that means they're not overlapping or, like liquidated damages up until this time, thereafter suitable replace, something like that. I truly haven't given a ton of thought to how we fix ours. I've just been doing this research because I don't deal with what happens when we have to replace a teacher mid-year. I'm not in a school and I'm not in HR, so.
I have a question for the team too, and if this is not appropriate or if it's too late, I assume question. So can we agree that, so if we have liquidated damages and we're gonna let teachers leave mid-year, right? Can we agree that when that happens, there's disruption to learning, that there's more work for the remaining teachers, and that it lowers our fill rates? Okay,
Yes.
so if we agree to those, and I would suggest that we apply that test or those facts to any of our solutions. So if we keep in liquidated damages and we're saying that it's going to be okay that teachers are allowed to leave if they pay $2,000 during the school year, that we're accepting that it's going to disrupt learning, it's going to make more work for the remaining teachers, and it's going to lower our fill rates.
Well, what you're saying is, would that solution meet our interest? And I think those things you listed are probably listed on the list of interest. I was going to ask John to pull us up that list if he has the notes and see what other things are on there. You're kind of just taking us right back to the IBB process. So whatever solution you choose, does it actually address the problem and meet the interest without, unduly harming other interest? So that's kind of why I said, we're going to throw some ideas on that idea list, communicate or give some transfer options. The idea of the last one related to liquidated damages, we'll throw them up there with other ones, but we have to test them against, does it solve the problem and does it not harm interest? So John, do you happen to have a Word doc I either emailed you or were you taking notes in the body of the issue statement on this one?
Yeah, I have it. Rachel's will have to share it with
Okay,
WebEx.
so I need to share my screen or?
Because I'm going to have to get off at 4:20 and I wanted you guys to have interest in your mind when I drop off, and you're going to go through each one of your brainstorm ideas. Remember, your test is, does it fix the problem? Does it meet interest and not harm? Is it manageable, feasible, affordable? I hear Rachel add another interest I would usually type is simplify. So you may want to add that to your interest if it's not already there.
We might just have to all look at these on our screens because when I try and share.
And someone could
it's
just
gonna
read
make
them out
me
loud.
sorry.
Rachel, you want to just go through them if you got them in front of
Yeah,
you? What were
so-
the interests?
I put these on the bottom. I copied and pasted these onto the bottom of the chart that I made for ease of reference. Maybe I knew this was gonna happen. So our joint interests are avoid detrimental impact on students caused by late resignations and avoid inconsistency in the classroom and disruption to instruction. So those are both related. And then avoid the burden and stress that late resignations and unfilled positions places on that professional employees' coworkers. So, other teachers, building leaders, district administration, and HR. Avoid the burden that places on our subpool. So that I think are the things that Dr. Schumacher listed. And then of course, we want to have qualified teachers in our classrooms. And when we have a late resignation, sometimes it's not possible to get a qualified teacher. And then have an easy to understand and not unnecessarily complex late resignation provision. And then we had some interests that are probably more individual. And so for the district, we'd like to have a qualified replacement teacher hired before someone's permitted to late resign, ideally. I also added, as I was reading through these, I feel like it's in the team's best interest. You will see a lot of discretionary language in these other late resignation provisions. I don't know how those work in practice, but I feel like it is in our best interest to say, you meet X, you may late resign, and have it be a purely contractual if-then type thing. Because if we have sort of discretionary, if this kind of situation exists, or this characteristic, whatever, then someone's making a discretionary decision, and I get nervous that sets us up for having to fight, to deal it with grievances, or potentially to unconsciously treat people differently because we didn't
Rachel,
remember.
I don't put that in their frame or focus. I think the interest was avoid liability. Reduce liability.
Yes, avoid liability. So that was my thought as I read through these was, how do these actually work? Is someone actually like in front of the board, like, please, I'm really unhappy, and then the board just yes or no? I mean, that seems really awkward to me. So I feel like it should be just more direct, and if you meet this, then this. And
real quick, are there any other interest on the notes that we did last time? And if not, can I pause and say, does anyone have any interest that are not identified there? Like, why do we need to fix the problem? So we've already heard, basically it all comes down to student outcomes, it sounds like, and teacher burden, right? Teacher burden and morale.
And
But were
losing our
there other
teachers.
interests here?
Yeah, and retention.
And retention, yeah, losing our teachers in the summer is a large part of it.
Yes.
Yeah. And then we added liability today, avoid liability. Other interest you want to add, because you're going to test the ideas.
Along the lines of all these interests, and I brought this up 3 weeks ago, is we have a lot of examples in front of us, I think, and Rachel, I appreciate you finding this information and pulling this out, because this is extremely helpful. What the answer that I still need and still looking for is how effective are each of these in the different districts? Is this making a difference in DeSoto? Are we seeing a different result in Blue Valley? Are we seeing a different result in KCK on teacher retention? I mean, what is working? Because we can hypothesize about what this will do or what the response would be, but until we have some feedback, I think that's the important piece that we're missing on all of these interests.
And so you're saying basically, do we really know if it'll fix the problem? When we say, does this solution fix the problem, do you really know until you try?
Correct.
And my guess is that and I know Dr. Schumacher's referred to talking to his colleagues at Blue Valley and Olathe who are in this red-orange territory, is that those individuals are going to say, it's great for us. There is no late resignation here.
Well, what some of them are having to do is the staff member wants to resign, and so then what ends up happening is when they don't show up to work, instead they start disciplining them as not showing up, and then they end up getting terminated.
Yes.
So, I mean, I don't know if they would say, that's working great for us. We just terminated
No,
them."
that's, I think,
But-
on the other side of things, right? I mean, I almost wonder, it's almost to me something that comes down to contractual fairness, right? Like, you know, on one side, you have a teacher who's committed to work for a school year. They've agreed, they've signed their name on the dotted line, they've committed. On the other side, there needs to be some reasonable level. Okay, if things, we've outlined our exceptions, but if you have some other crazy, unique, acute thing that's individual to you, what is reasonable here? Given the impact that your late resignation will have, what's reasonable? And I know we've talked about the idea of, again, some reasonable out, right? If someone is, and this probably happens very, very few times in any given school year for a variety of reasons, but if someone is so miserable, what is the ideal pathway there?
Right.
Again,
Right.
an ideal world, we have so many resources in Shawnee Mission. We're a large school district. We care a lot about our employees, and but there is going to be that 1 out of 5,000 times that it just doesn't work for that person.
And I think
so.
reasonable, I think reasonable is a suitable replacement. However, with the challenges in this day and age that we haven't had to face for, I don't know how long, it's becoming harder and harder to find a reasonable and a suitable replacement. So
Sure.
that's kind of why we're here. I don't know how we find one answer to solve this problem. I think we're just looking, one of the biggest pieces is that poaching, probably a pretty strong word, of losing our quality teachers in Shawnee
Right.
Mission
Right.
in the summer is really, it's really hurting us.
Right. And I wondered
Hey,
if
guys,
we could look at solutions that would help with that summertime
Yeah.
first.
I'm gonna interrupt just long enough to give you some direction and drop off, because I think you guys are gonna try to go till 5. A couple things. Don't forget that you don't want to go to convincing each other, right? Not saying you do that, but don't go to convincing each other. Go to have the list of possible options in front of you, right? You've already brainstormed some options. You have a few to add. Have that list in front of you as a group and start eliminating what won't fix the problem, right? And then see what's left and see what's left that will actually, meet the interest, as far as you know, right? This may be something you have to review in a year or 2 years. See, did it fix the problem, as someone just said, right? So avoid convincing each other. Look at the visual on the screen of what ideas you already have out there. There are some. I hope you guys have that document. And then go from there. Last thing I was going to say, are we all making the assumption there will be some reasons that folks won't? What I think may be missing on the interest, is it compassion? Is it exception? What is it? Is there an assumption that whatever you guys do, you're going to have that list of small exceptions that have already existed that will exist? If we could all agree to that. If not, then you need to put that compassion or exception as an interest, right? And then if you get to a point where you all in the room can't pick one, it means there's an interest that's not being said, right? And it's okay to say it. Okay, if it's concern on how it will land with teachers, whatever that interest is, you got to say it to get it addressed. And now I'm going to have to drop off, guys, and I'll check in with you, I guess, before we're together next, or when we are together next, and see where you land on it.
Awesome, thank you.
So I know, 2 years ago, this was brought forward, and we switched it from $1,000 of liquidated damages, which it was just $1,000, and you literally could write the check and leave the next day. And I know that was one of the major concerns of the Board of Education, and obviously the district as well. But so then we talked about increasing it to $2,000, but also I think as a compromise, having the 28 calendar day and not paying, because we were increasing it to 2,000. So I wonder if maybe now we've seen 2 years of it, and the 28 calendar day wasn't necessarily, or was causing issues in the summertime, or even throughout the year. And so do we consider going back to pure liquidated damages, or something with, without a 28 calendar day that allows you not to pay? I want the qualifying exceptions, and those are already in there, and I think absolutely what she was saying, we need to have those.
I agree. I don't have any desire at all to get rid of the qualifying exemptions. The compassion piece needs to remain in there. we have to have an out for some of those issues. So we're in agreement there.
Do we want to put up on the screen the,
Oh, yes, I should, so can we end the WebEx meeting?
Yeah,
Okay, you did. Okay, so I'm gonna end that.
I just left it.
Oops.
We're all just sitting on WebEx.
I'm gonna end that meeting, and then I can, you want me to share this chart so we can,
well, there are solutions on our,
oh,
At the bottom.
John made a folder
perfect.
on
Okay.
issue statement notes. And inside the folder of issue statement notes.
I copied the solutions to the bottom.
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
They're on the very bottom of the
Oh,
document.
look at you. Well, thank you. So yes, you could share that.
okay.
So we're proposing solutions? Is that?
Yeah.
Sounds
I mean,
like it. Yeah.
you know.
I would just say it's important we get this right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's important we get this right. We don't have a facilitator here. Ideally, I get to leave here and start drafting language, but if we don't, that's okay. I don't want to do anything out of speed that then later we're like, oh wait, that had unintended consequences. So, so I just wanted to remove that time pressure.
Right.
For just kind of having free dialogue,
Okay.
I would like to get us closer from the bottom to the middle. Not candidly, I'm on video. I'd like to get to the top, but we're not going to get there, I don't think. I'd like to get somewhere near the middle, and so I like KCKs. So if we're just throwing out solutions or possible solutions where there is liquidated damages through the summer, but at that point, we've started the school year, it's nearly impossible to find someone, you're in your contract at that point.
And I would say on the other side of that, because it is impossible to find someone, that means that if there is someone that is, for whatever reason, so unhappy or in such a situation that they just can't continue employment with the district, like almost forcing them to stay there because you can't find someone. Or if they're in a position that's much more difficult to find a replacement, right? They might have to stay longer than someone else that's easier to find because they're in a hard-to-fill position.
Right.
So like it might, my issue, I guess, is being equitable with a suitable replacement. Are you
Well,
going to find a
I would include.
physics AP teacher or something, you know?
Yeah, I guess, I don't know if I 100% followed you, but I would include with that the compassion pieces, the qualifying exemptions too. So after the school year started, if there was something about what are ours, is there anything about health? There's nothing about health.
That's where my thinking was going, is most of these situations, we're talking about someone who, from a mental health perspective, cannot continue.
Right. So
And so if I'm marrying this with employment law and ADA, I mean, I think we could think about, and I think there's an example in here of if your healthcare provider says you need to be released from your contract, right? That could be a way that we look at that. And I think we should talk about whether that happens, with or without liquidated damages. But I think we need some non-discretionary, the director of HR deciding if you've pled enough compassion, but something to concretely say that, this is not something that, where you can continue. If we're trying to meet that, I think we're in a really hard place of trying to, again, balance that fairness with someone who legitimately, from a health perspective, needs to not continue anymore.
My hunch.
You never know.
There you go.
Sorry, my hunch, and I don't know, but in looking at the top and essentially through the language, there's no exceptions other than what the compassion piece. We take the compassion out. If we just look at kind of the game plan and the language there, I guess my question is, when we were looking at those employees who have resigned in the middle of the year for the last 2 years and beyond, how many of those would we estimate would not resign under the clause as stated from Blue Valley?
Like if they just weren't allowed to leave.
They weren't allowed to leave. How many of
Would they have
those,
stayed?
right, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
No.
I would
get
think
it.
it would be anyone who just paid liquidated damages, probably.
Yeah, I'm
You
not
you
sure.
know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
Or
to
like-
me, it's what's gonna work.
Yeah.
And what's gonna make the biggest impact. And I think there's probably some level of deterrent
Yeah.
for the employee if they look at the P and A and they say, okay, once the school year starts, I don't have an option. I'm locked into this.
That's why I
Unless
like-
unless I have some severe mental,
Right.
physical, health reasons. And then obviously that comes into play.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I understand the questions, guys. I mean, you have all the information I have
Sure.
here, so, I mean, another district.
And I'm not saying that you
accepting
have the
another
answer, Mike, I'm
position,
He's just talking.
leaving profession, accepting another position,
Yeah.
work conditions,
Right.
accepting another position, leaving school setting, personal.
When it
Yeah.
says accepting another position, is that another teaching position or is it just another
Could be out of
job?
education.
Because that's, like Topeka's, for example, after August 1st, they have the suitable placement, but then like they won't release you to take another, the way I read it was another teaching job. So like you can leave, you just can't go, to another district.
My question would be how they enforce that.
Well, right, I mean, right, well, so that was gonna be my question too,
I mean,
like how
I
enforceable
think
would that option be?
probably if you write in
mean,
your
if you're to that point,
resignation
you
letter,
probably
I am resigning to take another position, it would not be accepted.
Right.
But you would just not do that then.
Right.
So that is
I-
only
yep.
to signal to people they shouldn't resign for that reason, and it's their own moral conscience that.
Yeah, and I'm in the forest, guys, so it's hard for me to see outside of it. But I think we all have the same wants. I mean, if someone comes, I think what I'm hearing is if someone comes to the HR team and says, I'm
done.
mentally
Yeah.
ill, I cannot do this anymore, I am sick, my doctor, we all have the same interest that, yes,
Right.
absolutely, we need to find a solution. But I hope we also agree that leaving the profession or a different job, no matter what it is, we
It's
don't
harmful to
need to
us.
serve that person. They
Correct.
committed, in my opinion, maybe you do disagree. They committed to us and they committed to our kids, and when they leave, learning is disrupted, it puts more work on teachers, and it lowers our fill rates.
Agreed.
So I don't think we disagree, it's just, I guess we need to find that common ground, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
I'm kind of wondering also, this year, could there have been less people late resigning if they didn't have the option to just wait 24 calendar days and not pay any money at all? If their only option was to pay money, would they have stayed until May 28th? So that's, because I know we never had that 28 calendar day option until 2 years ago.
Right.
And has that, like you guys said, make it more simple to.
Right.
yeah.
And I think that was my
Maybe,
point.
yeah.
If we didn't have an option,
Yeah.
right? If we were at the top where DeSoto, Blue Valley outlined, if they didn't have the option, how many of them would still be here,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I guess I want to think through your question too, Jill. That's a good one, because since we raised it and added those other stipulations, they've gone up. And I don't think any of us thought they would go up.
Right.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I think the intention was really good to give us time to find
Right.
someone. But there's
But
no
that
one
was
there to
also-
find,
I was
and so
gonna say
it
that was
doesn't
also
matter.
probably-
I mean, 2 years ago was different. At the
Yeah.
time we did that, I remember we discussed, how long does it typically take you? And you
Yeah,
said, look,
right.
if it's a sped position, I don't know, but if I'm saying what's the average, we could maybe, but I do think conditions have changed. I do want to add that I know Dr. Schumacher has people come to him in the situation that we have been talking about, and we work with them under all the available leave options that they're provided under the PNA, under FML. I mean, the goal is always not that you should have to resign your position. We try and work with them.
Yeah, sure.
So that does happen. I just don't want to create the impression that it does not happen right now, that we're like, sorry, there's nothing available for you.
Right.
There are options for those people. It's just not one that we have. And And really that best interest of both parties is where that's most commonly used. But it's not something that we're like in language recognizing expressly, I guess, in the P&A right now. So, I mean, I would throw out as a possible solution that we move to a time-barred liquidated damage with an additional exception that gets to this issue that we're circling on of the compassion, compassion piece, basically, for someone who is struggling to such a degree. And again, we just have to think about how I don't want someone to ever have to plead their case, right? I think we just need a
Right.
non-discretionary bar for that if we would do something like that.
So when we're thinking of that like non-discretionary, how would the documentation go with that? So I'm just thinking, are you going by the employee's word? I'm assuming probably not. What
I'm trying to
type?
think through it practically too. Because typically when we're dealing with those things, we have them fill out the ADA request.
That's what they're doing right now, is they're filling out an ADA form, and we will provide paid leave as they have it, and if they don't have it, we provide unpaid leave. And they continue their benefits during that time period, and if they get to the end of the school year, to the date that they can resign, they can choose to do that at that time.
What if it's more like a working condition thing? Because I don't know how you prove that, if that's necessarily an exception.
Yeah, I
mean, I know you work with
I
them.
struggle with that. I mean, I think we have mechanisms to solve that, with us working together on fixing that work condition. I'm hesitant to go down that road,
Right.
to make that
yes.
I throw up the work condition flag and I'm out, right? Because
Right.
anyone can claim that, and I think they owe it to us for us to help them solve it.
So maybe something like that could be more of a collective commitment type.
And
I don't know.
I think that's certainly one of the association's largest roles on a day-to-day basis in terms of what you do for the employees that you represent. That is a huge common topic of conversation between association leadership and district leadership. And again, I think that issue of work conditions sometimes, again, just goes back to fairness. Everybody in this room is under a contract. Everybody in this room has had days where they've said, I'm done, I want to quit, but we've signed a contract. That I think goes for administrators in the exact same way. It's just sort of
Yeah, I would absolutely agree to a collective commitment that we would work together jointly on any employee who came forward with a work condition concern, and I hope that we're doing that already, but a collective commitment, if that
Yeah.
memorializes it, that's great.
I think what I'm also hearing is that the 28 days, the 1,000, once the school year starts at the $1,000, $2,000, those are not serving our joint interests. They're not helping, right?
No, and again, I'll just say, as someone on the administration side of this, it feels very awkward as I don't know. I think if you signed and you're quitting during the summer, it's probably well, I've decided to go somewhere else, take my career somewhere else, do something else, and that makes sense.
Right.
If it's during the school year, I don't know. It doesn't serve either side in my mind. At that point, you've started, you're with the students that are assigned.
Right.
That's where I'm at. I don't like it, but if you want to leave us in the summer and there's a liquidated damages, good luck, but best of luck at wherever.
Right.
But once we've started the school year, we got kids there, guys. We got to start rowing. That's where I'm at on that piece. And then folding in whatever other language that we can put in there to meet the needs of any kind of extenuating circumstances with that compassion piece.
Just in the hiring process, on a yearly basis, we're pretty fortunate, I think, in Shawnee Mission, and specifically from my perspective at South, is that we've had a lot of outstanding applicants for the next year. But the viability of finding somebody in the middle of the year is really just down to luck. And getting lucky that you can find someone in the middle of the year, or even at semester. It's hard to find somebody that is a viable replacement.
Well, yeah.
And I think when just the clause in there about suitable replacement really just comes down to luck.
Especially if you're looking at special
Right?
education.
Well, and I think,
And there's no luck in some areas, is what I'm saying.
You're not going to find special education suitable replacement mid-year, even maybe towards the
Yeah.
end.
So are we concerned about equity if we have any sort of tail? Like, okay, thereafter, if a suitable replacement is found, do we have concerns that that creates, instead of having this culture of you're under contract, it's, well, you're under contract, but if you teach an easy to fill position, you're really not.
Right, that's my point.
I would be concerned about, as a special education person.
Like, there's
yes.
20
Yeah,
PE
like-
teachers out there.
Yeah.
PE teachers are safe.
Right.
well, and to your point, I mean,
Right.
I think the legislation has set it up to try to make school districts equal, right? That we're all under the same fairness, right? So there's this X number of pool of teachers out there during this hiring period. You can all go get them, but then once the school year starts, that's why there's that statutory date for resignation, so that, okay, you're locked into here, and then at the next hiring season, you can start recruiting them again. It's kind of like baseball or football or whatever else, right? I mean, we're going after the same people, but once we start, this is
Right.
where you're at.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's not how we're operating right now.
Right.
It's-
Correct.
If we still had our liquidated damages but didn't have the 28 calendar day option, and we saw that over the next year, that cut them down in half, late resignations, I would think that that would be a move in the right direction. Like what I was saying, like, these people that went ahead and waited 28 calendar days and didn't have to pay, would they have still chosen to do that if they did have to pay? Do you know? And so there's no way for us to know that unless, I don't know.
We do it.
So, I don't know, I would not want to completely get rid of liquidated damages throughout the school year. But I understand how
Can you,
the
can
concerns.
you explain why?
I think, I guess I just get worried about someone being able to have their issue addressed. Whether it's, one of our interests was people being permitted to late resign if they did have like a significant concern about their work environment or their,
Personal safety.
yeah, I don't know. And I know that, like you said, we work with people and we're trying to solve problems, but I don't know. I guess it's what if in the future there's someone in your position that doesn't feel as though they can work to solve the issue?
Less
And so,
compassionate.
right. I don't know.
Right.
And how many other districts still do have late resignations? It's something that we would be like kind of giving up in a sense. And I know this is not traditional bargaining. When you give up something, what do you get in return? It just, I don't know, it still feels like something that would be giving away, I guess.
I think the
Jesse,
hard
don't-
part of that is that, and I totally understand that, but for the people who remain in the bargaining unit, that's harmful to them. So when someone leaves, they're
That's what
not
I-
a member of either of our organizations
That's what I can't
anymore.
that's what I can't reconcile is this person's leaving all of us. It's putting all of the members, it's putting everyone at a detriment. So I can't reconcile, I'm trying to, I'm sorry, I just can't,
No,
I
I
can't
understand.
reconcile that rationale that we're okay with someone.
I think that
Right.
goes back to all of those pillars too, that you guys talked about with the retention committee. All the people that are left behind, right? When somebody leaves in the middle of the school year. I could support the summer, that kind of stuff, but all of those things that we talked about are interests, it wouldn't meet those. The people who are left have more workload, there's not a work-life balance.
Right.
So I think we need to think about that aspect too, right?
We clearly have a joint interest in at least deterring or trying to reduce any school year late resignations. And so in that, late resignations in a way that are going to have those negative impacts that we're trying to avoid. And so there's a couple ways if I'm just charting out, if we're talking about during the school year, and none of them are going to be perfect. One is a suitable replacement only tail end after the start of the school year, but we've mentioned that that is not necessarily fair to people who are in hard to fill positions. So that's one. Two would be to have a higher amount of liquidated damages, right? So if you make your choice and jump ship before you're with students, that's these, kind of amounts we're seeing, and it's going to be much higher if it's during the school year. Again, the imperfection there is that money does nothing for Shawnee Mission School District or the
Right.
coworkers. It's only serving as a deterrent.
Yeah.
The third way that I can think of, again, would be, to build in, and I know there's one example in here of language about like a physician certification or something like that, adding that, coming up with what we see as fairly black and white additional exception. But we want to make sure that it's not something that's a floodgate or discretionary, either way, right? So those are the ways that I could think of to try and meet that
Yeah.
3 ways, and I don't know if anyone can think of anything else.
Explain that third one again.
So we have built-in exceptions, and if I'm remember that, we can scroll all the way down to the green area.
Spouse moves.
Yeah.
So proof of qualifying exception. So
Move of a spouse,
yes.
promotion at the semester,
Mutual benefit.
mutual benefit, yep.
And so when those happen, you do not pay liquidated damages, right? So we've said, okay, for our team's purposes, and teams before us have said, obviously, if your spouse moves far away for their job, that's a compassion thing for us.
Right.
Give us give us the 2 weeks and you may go. Same thing, obviously, we want to, as we just talked about the retention, you want to have a way to promote. And then mutual benefit, which again is commonly used in these situations where we have employees who are just in a place where it's not working on either side of the equation. And so I would put a 4 there, or see
Yeah.
if there's something that we could add that, again, the district wouldn't want to open a floodgate that anyone could abuse an exception. But we'd also, again, want to make it so that we wouldn't have an exception there that allows for different treatment of individuals.
So the third tenet that you talked about would be adding a fourth
Yeah.
reason
Right.
Yeah.
to that clause.
Something that would include something
Okay.
around
I just
health
didn't
is what
understand
I'm
Yes.
thinking.
where we're
And it
going.
would not involve payment of liquidated damages, because we would have decided as a team that if you meet this, and you can see that all of these are very easy to prove, right? Like, give us a letter from your employer, or show us your acceptance letter for a position, or on number 3, we always have a separation agreement with that person where we spell out how the end of their employment's gonna work.
Gotcha.
So those right now, we've never had an issue where we felt like, there's not really room for abuse. We've never had anyone do anything squirrely under those things.
Nope.
So just kind of a clarifying question, I guess, on those liquefied damages. You've said several times that obviously it doesn't help the district. With the district's budget, it's a very small drop in the bucket. What fund does that go into?
Funny you should ask.
It goes,
So, Russ, if you're watching, so I've been arguing with Russ for 2 years now. We used to get it, we being the HR team, and we could use it in our budget for recruiting and things like that, which is,
Okay.
but they've taken it back and it's just going into operations.
Because again, and this might be a possible solution, and I'm not sure the legalities behind this either. If that liquefied damages could go to those who it's affecting, if we do go a liquefied damage route, is there a potential then, like, I'm assuming then if there's a team, even if there's a long-term substitute, that's creating a burden on myself as a team member that I'm probably putting in extra work, potentially extra hours beyond my contract. Is there a potential for that money to then go to those teachers that it's affecting? Or those staff that it's affecting?
We're probably already spending it because we're paying for work during their plan
Right.
time, missed lunches.
Makes sense, yeah.
Extra time planning after school. So we're probably already doing it and just eating it. We're not coding it to that.
Got it,
liquidated
okay.
damages, yeah.
And the legal theory behind liquidated damages is it's impossible to calculate the financial impact, and obviously it would be different for every individual teacher. And so it's like, we've just pre-decided because we couldn't possibly, if we were suing you over breach of contract and trying to write up to the jury what the damages are, it would be very difficult. How do you calculate the stress on your coworkers? How do you calculate the number of parents who emailed the principal upset that their kid got a new teacher in the middle of the year? You can't calculate that stuff. So that's the idea. And then again, essentially, it's just what does the number need to be to deter?
So I know
Yeah, I think each building would be very, very different if we're looking at $200 and how we're going to redistribute that money to the staff members. You're talking about many more people just than the teacher team. You're talking about the custodial team. You're talking about the front office folks. You're talking about the administrators. Sometimes you're talking about the bookkeeper who's trying to clean up all of their mess and everything that goes with that. So it would, all of a sudden, if we take that $2,000 and apply it to a high school vacancy, everyone gets $2.
Yeah, it's a small drop in teacher's budget. Yeah, that's I was thinking through that same thing.
So I know some of us have an interest in seeing the Wildcats play.
I don't even
Just
know
saying,
who
it's
That's probably why Linda left.
Oh, yeah.
Linda.
If we're kind of talking about further developing the idea of this solution of escalating time barred liquidated damages, I think where we're to fully develop that as a possible solution, we would need to start sort of eliminating these three ideas for then what we do during the school year. Now, obviously, the amounts are something that we would have to talk about, because right now we're at 2,000. So obviously, amounts would be a whole different thing. But as between these three possible during the school year things, suitable replacement, liquidated damages, or adding an additional exception to allow someone an out. Does anyone see obvious losers, obvious winners, obvious no starters?
I like the idea. Go ahead, Joe.
Go ahead.
I like the idea of exploring all of them, like kind of fleshing them out more.
Mm-hmm.
And having a deeper discussion about it.
I agree. I'd be willing to look at another exception if we can solve. I think the one piece we haven't talked about much is the impact on kids. And if we have one teacher leaving, it impacts way more than one teacher. It impacts several teachers. So it kind of goes back to benefit maximization. So we've got numerous teachers that are going through more stress, more frustrations, more anxiety, impacts work-life balance. And we haven't even mentioned the impact on the kids and learning, which is why we all sign a contract in the first place. And so I think we're just looking at ways to hold on to teachers and to keep them through that contract. And so I'd be more than willing to look at another exception. I think if it makes you feel better, it's gray because we're talking about 4,000 employees and everybody is unique and different in their own way and has different things they deal with. But I'm willing to look at one if it would be suitable that we could move past this topic and kind of all get on the same page, if that's a possibility.
Again, we can look at having a higher amount during the school year that has the benefit of having an out, but we still doesn't meet all of the interests. Suitable replacement, again, that still puts a burden on HR to be posting and hiring and interviewing, and then we have the issue of, it not being equitable. I'm trying
Just for,
to think.
just for the sake of argument, I'll go back to my original plea. I think suitable replacement, just a flat suitable replacement serves everyone's needs, saves the employee money, and it meets all of our other issues in that, hey, just give me some time to find your replacement and you can go. So.
I would like to hear, I'm wondering from the association's perspective, how important that summer, that, the ability to get out right after it sounds like the pressure point for you guys is during the school year, if someone's really, really unhappy. So I'm wondering how much any liquidated damages during the summer before someone's even stepped foot in a classroom, what value that has to both sides, honestly. Because a big issue from HR was poaching during the summer, right? I mean, we have that happen a lot. Now, it can still happen during the school year because that is when we're like the most desperate to find someone. But I don't know, I think we need to be challenged to think about, does it even make sense? I'm flipping everything on its head now. Does it make sense to have liquidated damages during the summer? Or should we just have one amount? Like, one amount, we all agree that it's a fair amount, and it's not during the summer. It's for crazy extenuating circumstances during the school year. I don't know. That would be something I think to think about. Because I don't know, I don't know for either side how much that summer meets the ability to get out of your contract during the summer meets either one of our interests. And I think it's something we need to think about. Like, I think we do that because we've talked about the reasons why statutorily school employees are issued contracts.
Yeah, I need.
And I assume that's why all school districts have built it that way, so that it's during the summer. But how does it benefit either one of us to say, I guess it's sort of the buyer's remorse provision, right? Like, never mind, I got a better deal elsewhere. That's not, at least historically for a while, Shawnee Mission's been one of the highest paying districts in the area, so we shouldn't have too much of that. I know it's not all about pay, but.
I would echo Joe's statement in that I think it's important to flesh out all of these alternatives. And I think something maybe to think about, and I'm trying not to make this longer, but something to think about is that if we could add a fourth option that would kind of encompass the concern about getting into those situations where they feel like they're trapped.
Incident to Pecos.
If we could come up with a fourth option that fits that, then to me, we do away with the need for the compensation or the 28 days and all the other things that don't seem to be effective. And I don't know how to define that or word that. I'm just throwing that out.
They're looking at Topeka number 4 and 3 to start with.
So for the sake of time, could we being Rachel, work on that, a fourth, like drafting some language that could be a fourth out or a fourth, what do we call it, compassion, qualifying, thank you. And then table the conversation and come back.
And I really do think we need, clearly all these other districts do it this way for a reason. I just had this thought of like, what is the time that we do actually care about? Like, does it behoove us to allow people to jump around during the summer, or does it really behoove us to have reasonable ways that if you can't be in your job anymore,
right,
you can get out and, I don't know. I think we should think about that. Okay, I'm gonna work on that. Again, if anyone so like Topeka's deals with verified by a physician. So I'm gonna try and think as creatively as I can again. How do we not open the floodgates, right? How do we have some verification? So I'm gonna start thinking about that. And I can come back with that at the next meeting. Agenda-wise, I feel like we started out so productive in our meetings and we got through a bunch of things. And now we're kind of, we've worked on district issues for a while, and I want to make sure we have enough time to get to issues identified by the association. Our next meeting's a half day, right?
Yeah.
Yes. My,
It's April 4?
yes, it's a Tuesday in the afternoon. So I think we probably still need to keep that issue of the sub-fill rate, although I think we really threw Russ off. I'll just share, when we brought this to him, he was like, what are you trying to do? Like, we think it's a lot more simple than I think it actually is, and he's having trouble coming up with ways where we don't have a new category. So I think having additional time for him to brainstorm and maybe even actually present options would be good. But I would suggest that maybe if we get, what's the next issue that the association has if we look at our chart? Because we might have to like send things to subcommittees if we're spending a lot of time so that we get time and space to work through them.
No more subcommittees. I'm just kidding. Yeah, staffing and caseload, thank you. And then,
Or aggressive student behavior.
yes, aggressive student behavior and leave.
Yep.
Okay. Do you guys feel like you'll be ready to share on those next time?
Yes.
Okay. What do we have after that?
Cell phone policy.
Okay.
And then benefits and salary schedule and all that jazz. Oh, you guys have saving for retirement as well.
Yeah.
It's comp, yeah, the comp too.
Yeah, which we think would possibly fit under the compensation. So we're not too
Right.
far off. It's possible we can make a lot of progress and be on time, because we still have 2 more meetings before the budget. Okay. I'll work on something, and if it's a situation where I feel like looking at it before might be helpful, I'll send it to Jill, and if Jill agrees, just so that everyone has time to digest. But yeah, if we start getting too in-depth and we're not moving forward and getting to your issues, I think maybe we could talk about subcommittees, so we have time to do that in these settings.
And we don't, there's no one forcing us to finish by May. I know that
Yeah.
that's
Oh, yeah.
our goal. But yeah, we want to make sure that we're talking about all the issues that we have. And if there's something that we want to leave as a discussion, as opposed to trying to fully solve, there might be some in there, so.
Okay. Understood. And I mean, we could always add meetings too. It always is difficult once you move on to compensation.
Yeah.
So typically, if we're going into the summer, it's related to compensation. It's like hard to get your mind back in other things once you're there. So we should take a temperature of where we are after the next meeting and see, do we feel like, and we can always move the compensation one back too and not start on that. We have lots of options. So, awesome. Okay, thanks guys. I will send out a joint statement for everybody to review tonight.
Cool, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.